Yeah, I know. Oh, na, 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 na. Oh, na, 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 na. IT
Season 3.
Good afternoon and welcome back to another special edition of the My Team Sports Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Thalen Thoma Taylor. Woo! It's another beautiful day here in South Florida. I can't deny it. It's about like 100 and something degrees. Sorry, it's not 100 something degrees. I just got the number 100 stuck on my mind today. 84 degrees. It's a little breezy. There's a little bit of Christmas. So maybe like 77 degrees. To be honest with you, I don't know what the weather is. It's just really nice. The whole entire day has begun for me. Listen, we got a whole lot to talk about today. You know what I mean? We got a special guest coming in the house. We get to talk about the NBA draft. Listen, WWE and their CEO is making noise. And obviously, there's going to be some Super Bowl here to talk about. But you know what I say. Regardless of the time.
Take that, take that, take that.
And regardless of the weather.
Hello? You play to win the game.
It's always a good time for us to talk some sports. So, let's start talking. Back at it like a sports fanatic. Woo! Yes, this is one of those days. So, can we start out to let you guys know that if you're listening live, that if you're watching on Facebook, or if you're catching the re-air of this, guess what? It is a special 100th episode. 0 to 100 real quick. Real quick. I mean, I'm saying, you guys are going to have to bear with me, right? As I flash back a little bit here, because if you've been on this journey with me, no, Jimmy, got it there, Jimmy. You guys are going to have to bear with me as we flash back a little bit, because I came to a realization the other day as I'm preparing for this 100th episode. And once again, I do thank you guys. If you're in many places that you guys are going to be listening to, once again, if you're catching this live, that means you're catching it right here live on mytradio.net or mytsports.net. I push it through both platforms. But if you're catching the re-air, there's plenty of places to catch it in the re-air. You can catch it at 24/7 Miami.tv. You can catch it at mytsports.net. We'll have it in the archives. You can also go to the TuneIn Radio app, and you'll be hearing it live as well. So we have multiple of places for you to get and listen to. Listen, you can go directly into the Mixlr app and catch it if you want to. It all depends, whatever your liking is. We give this to you, the people that have been here listening. 400 episodes. So I bark in this, I start preparing for the show, and I come to realize that, man, 100 episodes. That's easily, like I said, we're in our third season, so we're talking 3 easy years. But not only that, we're talking, and I mean this, we're even talking about the fact that when we started this podcast, Kobe Bryant announced his retirement. And during this podcast, we were able to cover the whole entirety of the Kobe farewell tour. Not only that, we also got the opportunity to capture his final game here. We got to see Peyton Manning win and lose the Super Bowl. We got to see Bill Belichick and Tom Brady cheat themselves to another. We've had a lot of fun here over these last couple episodes, but we're here to talk sports. We're here to talk sports because that's what we came here to do. So, let's cut that music.
First of all, things first.
I actually had to change what I was going to talk about first, because a greater topic popped up as I'm riding into to do the show, and that is, there was a death in the NBA, and it's the kind of death that I'm not a Heat fan, granted, but this guy was more than just a Heat player, and obviously there's certain times where there's things that go beyond sports. So what I want to do is as I start off the show, before I get into any major topics, I want to say rest in peace and send my condolences out to Rajul Butler, who we heard was in a horrific car accident with him and his wife, and both of them have passed. So we tip our hats to you, sir. Rajul Butler, former player of the Miami Heat. So if you're a Heat fan, that's the news that's kind of coming down on the wire today for you guys. Amongst a bunch of other things that you're in play for. And I put in air quotes because that term, in play for, I really wonder of how much teams are really in play. And sometimes if things are just being said. So one, you can either try to add value to a player, so it's not really being said by that team, or two, that team is just putting news out there to really just kind of appease to the fans. But we'll touch that a little bit later. We'll get into what I'm talking about in the later, you know. So back to the matter at hand.
First things first.
WWE makes some news. Big news. And quite frankly, it wasn't for wrestling. WWE and their CEO, Vincent Kennedy McMahon, announces the resurgence of the XFL. And initially, a part of me thinks, and I say initially, that this is brilliant, that this is a wonderful move, that this is one of the best things that we can possibly get. And a big part of me still feels that way. What up, Xander? I see you watching. I appreciate it. Much love. It seems brilliant to me initially, but when Vince presents this, it starts to fizzle out a little. It doesn't quite seem as if it has the same luster that we thought it would. And not for nothing. Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Vince McMahon has had to change a lot. This is no longer the Attitude Era. We are now in the Marshmallow Era. And this is in all sports. And listen, anytime you get about 2 or 3 generations removed, and in sports, where you see like every sport is about, screw you. Every sport is just about the generation. The generations, they switch over just about every 7 years or so is when you notice a new generation changing sports. So anytime you get about 3 to 4 generations removed, you kind of run into the fact that, yeah, things are going to be a little bit softer. Things are going to be a little bit more cupcakeier than what you may be previously used to. And that is one of the things that you always kind of run into as you switch generations. So this is no longer the 90s where everything was the Attitude Era and it was the rebellious era and we were going against the grain. No, this is a more PC era, as not only is it a better PC era in football, but it's also a more PC era in wrestling. Like, if you've watched wrestling over the last couple of years, then you realize probably the same amount of changes. Little things, less profanity, obviously. Obviously, they're a publicly traded company now, so they have a lot more rules to follow by. They try to eliminate all of the steroids out of it. They try to eliminate some of it. But more importantly, like, you notice it when it comes to the blood. How's that? You got sound now? You got sound now, Xander? I'm hoping you do. So Vince McMahon came out there and he presented the XFL in a way that he believes is now going to appease to the group of people that he needs to appease to that are upset with the NFL. You understand, back in the Attitude Era, we wanted more hard-hitting, more violence, a lot less of the fluff that the NFL was presenting. And now we're in an era where you kind of have to be a little PC. You have to protect your neck because we have to protect these players' heads. And there's way too many protocols and way too many insurances and way too many things that are going on. So Vince McMahon presented a lighter form of the XFL that he previously presented to us years ago. Shouts to my boy Orn, earning my dollars. He said, basically, players are going to have a set of rules that they're going to have to abide by. And those rules are going to be the rules that if you want to be a part of this league, then you're going to have to follow to either join or stay in it. They're not going to have anybody with a checkered past. So if you have something as much as a DUI, I believe they said, you will not get into the XFL. That changes things. Right? That lets you know quickly that they're no longer the Attitude Era. They're no longer... I don't know if that was it. They're no longer part of the era, the brand, or the time that said, we're going to come out here, we're going to give you something smash mouth, we're looking to really damage the NFL. No, they're going at them on a different route. They're going at the NFL to now, because instead, the Attitude Era really appeals to a lot of kids and a lot of young people. And while there's a lot of kids and a lot of young people that watch the NFL, the people that are buying the product right now are my age and older, unfortunately. So he's talking to the people with money that are saying they're tired of the NFL. The people that are saying, and I've heard them in car rides, I've heard them at bars, I've heard them in barbershops, I've heard them over the phone in my other endeavors. They say that NFL players are starting to feel entitled all of a sudden, as if they're being held down. Well, I'm here to say that it isn't about their entitlement. It was always about how the equalities of man wasn't there, and it wasn't being stressed enough. But once again, it was hijacked, it was taking a different route, and now you see the XFL being able to benefit from the route that the NFL is kind of trying to run away from, or have their problems with. Because we say that ratings are down everywhere. I don't see the WWE having issues, but you know what? WWE is also doing major things. They're continuously expounding. They're continuously expanding, especially in the Asian market. We're going to touch a little bit about that later. We're going to work on those sound issues for you, for those people on Facebook, because we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We're going to come back. We're going to finish talking about the XFL, because can you figure that we barely touched into what I wanted to talk about? We're going to talk some more NFL. Hopefully, I guess we're going to have some guests that's going to come in later. Bada bing, bada boom, realest guy in the room. That dude that started that slogan just got fired from WWE for rape charges. This is myTsports Podcast. I am your host, Alan Tomar Taylor. You are listening on mytradio.net.
Let me put you on the game. Being taken advantage of isn't a game, and it needs to stop. Aren't you tired of being ripped off by those other guys? Then head to Multiverse Video Games and get the value you deserve on your games and gaming products. The games cost money, and you shouldn't feel like you're just giving them away. So why continuously buy a membership for prices and deals that you should be getting anyway? Multiverse Games not only has fair pricing and great trading deals, Multiverse has a wide variety of games, not just all your popular next-gen titles, but also all your favorite old-school titles and systems, starting as early as Atari and Nintendo to as current as PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and yes, that does include PlayStations, GameCubes, and Xboxes in between. They've been family-owned and operated for over 10 years, just off the intersection of 183rd and 7th Avenue in the Nurses Registry Plaza. That's conveniently located at 830 Northwest 183rd Street, Miami Gardens, Florida 33169. Believe it or not, just 5 minutes from Sun Life Stadium, $7.90 the ticket, and oh no, let's not forget Tootsie's Adult Entertainment Center. Multivest Games, where you save more so you can play more.
And we are back to the myTsports podcast. I am still your host, Talento Monthaler. If you are still listening, that means you're listening on mytradio.net, mytsports.net, the TuneIn app, Mixer 247 Miami.tv. However you're listening, I do appreciate it because you know when we're in here,
Take that, take that, take that.
not only do we take that and we give you those numbers,
Hello? You play to win the game.
but we give you all that. So back to the matter at hand. As we were saying, initially, hearing Vince McMahon say that he wanted to make or revamp the XFL, that initially brought all kinds of joy to me, right? The kind of joy that makes you think that progression is going to be made. And let me explain this to you. Let's explain this. Let's explain this, right? Let's explain this. There are a lot of, you understand, when it comes to, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. This may be the easiest way to put it. When it comes to sports, right? When it comes to sports, there's generally a top tier league, right? And that top tier league is basically the one that is running the whole entire organization in a weird way, in a way that says that, oh, you can't come and play in our league until you're 18, and then have them change it and say, oh, you can't come play in our league until you're 20 now. Or it has them say, you can't come play in our league until you've done 2 years of college. Or you can't come play in our league until you've had 3 years of college. These are the risks and the concerns and the issues that a lot of these people are facing, right? A lot of athletes face, every single athlete. We're well aware of it. We're well aware of the draft, the protocols, and how those things work, right? We have all of that down pat. So what we've heard also a lot this year, or players coming around now, or individuals coming around now saying that they would like to add a healthy alternative to what the major sports product is offering. And this is where the XFL comes in. Now I realize XFL isn't the only one. And this is what I thought the XFL was going to go at. Because if they can make themselves a viable league, right? A viable source, then they become a great alternative to kids going to college. And I don't know if this is their thought, but this was my thought. That if the XFL comes back again, and they're going after players that obviously can play, that obviously can qualify for the NFL. Some of them can. Why not rent guys for 2-3 years? You understand? Because put it off for a year. Because you understand the XFL could be the perfect place for one and dones, or for people to start getting paid right out of college. You have that guy like Leonard Fournette. What do you think happens if Leonard Fournette says, hey, I want to go to the XFL instead of doing 3 years of college? Then the whole entire matrix gets shifted. And now you have to now they're going to be forced to find ways to play players. Or sit back, we're talking about the NCAA here, or sit back and watch the XFL flourish, because they are going to get the first opportunity or the first chops at all of these players coming out of high school. It may even force the NFL to change their thinking. So if I'm the XFL, yes, listen, this is what you do. Yes, you wait 2 years, because they're talking about launching in 2020. This gives 2 years for that 16-year-old kid to try to think what he's going to do. That 14-year-old kid to try to think what he's going to do. And guess what? If in 2 years the XFL is on and popping, that 16-year-old kid now starts to debate if he should come to your league. If it's still popping while that 14-year-old kid becomes eligible, now you're turning some pages. Now, not for nothing, all of this, honestly, in a very weird way, makes me think of LeVar Ball. And I know you're wondering, like, hey, T, how does any of this make you think of LeVar Ball? Well, it's real simple, captains. LeVar Ball is also somebody else that is consistently trying to find a way to make an alternative league to the NBA. Because obviously, he wants his boys in the NBA. And he wants his boys to not have to go to school and get paid now. So much to the point that he's actually already taken them to Lithuania. And now we've gotten that twist, right? There's that twist there. That right now they're having exhibition games, right? Exhibition games. And in these exhibition games, LeVar Ball is the head coach. And now everything is being affiliated with the big baller band. Now, I'm telling you, there are entities out there. Watch out. There are entities out there coming for the NBA and the NFL. Or if they're not coming for them directly, they're putting things in the working to take their piece out of them. Like I said, we talked about LeVar Ball. We talked about Vince McMahon. Those are two guys we're talking about. LeVar Ball went to Lithuania to try to do his, but he could get funding. Because imagine if somebody like Vince McMahon really likes what LeVar Ball does. Because we keep trying to wonder, where does LeVar Ball get his money from? Where does LeVar Ball get his money from? Well, let's start paying attention to the guys that keep trying to come up with real ideas to undermine the NFL and the NBA, or circumvent them, as if you want to say. The 2K affiliates. Now, granted, they're making a whole entire E-League, and now we just came out with news that they're making an ED League, which I'm gonna kind of be excited for, because I'm gonna have to start putting in some man hours right after this podcast, which is the 100th podcast, which is taking a lot of time out of my existence lately. I've been over consuming with this. I'm gonna put in some man hours in the NBA 2K, but this is also after I get the radios. You know what? I'm already talking too much. Don't forget, if you ever want to call into the show, I don't have a number for you guys to call in this week. But I appreciate you listening. So let's stay here a bit, right? Because the WWE just had their Royal Rumble. And the Royal Rumble event featured great matches like KO and AJ Styles versus KO Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles for the heavyweight championship, right, or Universal Championship. We had Brock Lesnar versus the Beast which Brock Lesnar is the Beast. I'm sorry, the Beast versus the Machine versus the Monster. They had great physical, grueling matches, which I'm telling you, that was as grueling and as physical a heavyweight match than I can remember of all time. Like, this was just bodies being thrown all over, but in thuds and dumps and man.
Danger zone.
As I already told you, you guys on Facebook Live, you guys aren't going to get all of the audio. Not all of it. You're going to get a good portion, but not all of it. We got the Royal Rumble. Not just the men's Royal Rumble, but we also got the Women's Royal Rumble. And this is where WWE decided to take another step into their expansion, right? Because they allowed the Royal Rumble to be won by Shinsuke Nakamura and Asuka. Both, not only were they huge stars in NXT coming up, but they're also been huge stars in the Asian wrestling markets. So, it's no surprise that you would see WWE stake or share start to rise because, or their stock, I should say, start to rise because they're expanding. And what they're doing right now, they already went with an Indian champion. Now they're going with straight Asian, or two Asians. And they're going to put them in the forefront of the storyline on the road to WrestleMania. So between now and WrestleMania, you are going to see that Asian market, if it can't anymore, because they must be feeling like, hey, we haven't capitalized here in our Asian Indian market. This is all kind of saying the same thing twice. So let's push this further. And granted, those two individuals, they've held up their portion of the bargain to get that push. But let's just see if now on the road to WrestleMania, they do everything that's necessary to get themselves the recognition that WWE is utilizing them for. Also, as I told you, because this time of year, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, or just about any major pay-per-view, especially the dual pay-per-views that WWE have at this time, they also for a very small part become a nostalgia act. And that was the Royal Rumble. It was also in major part a nostalgia act where we got to see the lights of Jacqueline return. We got to see the lights of Michelle McCool return. We got to see the lights of Lita return. We got to see the lights of Molly Holly return. We got to see and get some Stratus faction. We are going to go to another commercial break. When we come back to the myTsports podcast, I don't know. I'm not ready to do my picks yet. We're going to talk some football. We may not talk football yet. We're definitely going to talk some basketball. We're going to talk some football too. And I still got my picks to do. But that and more on the myTsports podcast right here on myTRadio.net.
Stuck trying to figure out what to do on a Friday again? Well, stop worrying and stop thinking and head down to Capone's nightclub in downtown Fort Lauderdale. This is where you'll find DJ Scepter mixing in the lounge room so you can start dancing and start drinking. And we understand some of you may be an introvert, so you may want to start drinking so you can start dancing. But regardless of what you do, you make sure you do that with DJ Scepter. That's every Friday from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Ladies, you bring your sexy. Fellas, you bring your swag. It's going down at Capone's, but wait, there's more. Trying to figure out what to do on a Wednesday? Yes, hump day? You'll find DJ Scepter at O'Malley's from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That's right there on 441 between Coconut Creek and Royal Palm Boulevard. DJ Scepter plays everywhere that you want to be. Whether that's a birthday, wedding, bar mitzvah, quinceanera, proms, corporate events, bachelor or bachelorette parties. DJ Scepter puts a royal touch on everything. And for reservations, just send a simple email to bookings@djscepter.com. That's bookings@djscepter.com.
And we are back again. So, thank you guys for still listening. Just because it's episode 100 does not mean that things are going to have to go smoothly. As we're still waiting for our guest to hit us up. I don't know what's going on. You know what? For February, I think I'm gonna get a guest for every week in February. And just let you guys know that I have reserved the likes of the lovely Lexi. I want to call her Lexi Bell, but I feel like if I call her Lexi Bell, that's the wrong name. You think that's the wrong name? Lexi Lane. There we go. My apologies, Lexi. But I have the lovely Lexi Lane coming into the studio next month for you guys. And if we can get this right, hopefully, I may even try to get the ladies from the Spill to come back on the show. We'll see. It is going to be February. It is going to be Valentine's Day. It is going to be Black History Month. Hopefully, we also get the people from Hollywood Browns coming. But back to the matter at hand. Let's talk about this for a little bit, right? Let's talk about this for a little bit. Cruz's legacy is a foundation that is raising funds so that they can help cancer victims with peripheral neuropathy. Peripheral neuropathy is a disease, I shouldn't call it a disease, but it is a side effect from chemotherapy that leaves their victims in a state of hypersensitivity. What does that mean for their victims? It means that in 100-degree weather in South Florida, it feels like it's 20 degrees outside. You can't stay warm. You always feel like you're in a chill. And there's no worse time to not be able to feel warm than these winter months. So to help these victims out, Cruz's legacy is raising money so that we can buy scarves, hats, and gloves so that we can donate to these victims, and hopefully some blankets, so that we can donate, I'm part of this organization, so I shouldn't separate myself from it. I know the owner personally, and I know the person that this organization is founded because of, as so do to a lot of people that listen to this podcast. So today being the last day for it, I'm going to ask that you guys go out if you can to youcaring.com. That's youcaring.com/Cruz's Legacy, CRUZSLEGACY. And go and donate today, please. We're only $65 away from our goal to try to help these needy victims, these needy patients of chemo. Anything that we can do to help is what we're trying to do here to help them out. So anything that you can do to help, we really do appreciate it. And all funds, all proceeds goes directly to purchasing items to help these patients. Thank you. So as we get back into the show, I don't want you guys to feel like I'm not here for you right now, but there's a lot going on in the NBA right now, more so than normal, especially with some big names, because we had the NBA draft, right? Not the NBA draft in the whole sense of it, but we had the NBA All-Star draft come up. And that NBA All-Star draft, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm one of those people that said that I wanted to see it. But as I was doing the show, and I'm letting you guys realize, and I got to the XFL portion, and I realized as I'm giving credit to Vince McMahon for what he's done, I realized that I can't really find fault into what the NBA has done. Because the NBA knows for a fact that one of the things that is the trickiest for them to maneuver, or to constantly get ratings for, or to constantly improve on, or to do things that make people want to watch, that is revolved around the NBA All-Star Weekend, right? that's revolved around the NBA All-Star Weekend, where they've tried things from horse. They've tried at least a dozen ways to grade, do, or orchestrate the slam dunk contest. The 3-point contest, they've changed a whole bunch of ways. So I can see why they'll feel a little reluctant, just a little reluctant, just to come out with a show flat out revolved around just picking teams. But then again, also, not giving us that show the very first year you have it is even brilliant in its own right. Because now you've built the intrigue. Now you've actually had the opportunity to sit back and gauge the kind of interest that this very small, minute segment would pull. And you know what? It could be a 15-minute show. It could be a 30-minute show. You now know there is intrigue. People want to see it. They're, in the world of supply and demand, yes, folks, we want this. And you know what the NBA has said? Next year, they will supply it. So this is how things went down. Obviously, you guys know of all of your starters, right? LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis. Oh. You guys. Stephen Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, James Harden, Cousins, DeRozan, Embiid, Kyrie. Those are your 10 starters. So the way things worked is that they went through, and obviously they picked their starters first, and then they went through and they picked through the pool of reserves. Basically, the fan picks first, and then obviously the coaches picks. So, in the red corner, or the Cavs corner, representing the East, you had LeBron James pick up guys, like obviously his first pick is Kevin Durant. Because where he had to pick a starting five of Anthony Davis, Kyrie Irving, and DeMarcus Cousins, you would assume that Kevin Durant is the first person picked. Also, you'd assume that because of who the first person that who's on Stephen Curry's team. So let's go through the starting lineup for the LeBron James-led team. First up, you have LeBron James, obviously. Next pick, Kevin Durant, followed by Anthony Davis, followed by Kyrie Irving, followed by DeMarcus Cousins. Now, this particular order is not the order that they picked it. It's just the order that I believe that they probably did pick in. Because if we move over to the Western side, in the yellow corner, led by Golden State's own Stephen Curry, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo, followed by the bearded one, James Harden, Joel Embiid, and DeMar. And then the interesting thing comes to pop up, which is basically everybody else that's on the bench, right? Everybody else that is going to be on the bench. And those people on the bench are, in the red corner, LaMarcus Aldridge, Bradley Beal, Kevin Love, Victor Oladipo, Kristaps Porzingis, John Wall, and Russell Westbrook. followed by, in the yellow corner, to add on to Curry, Giannis, James Harden, Embiid, and DeRozan, you have Klay Thompson. One of my favorite guys to watch. That's Jimmy. That's Jimmy. Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Buckets, as we like to call him. Draymond Green, Al Horford, Damian Lillard, or Dame Dollars, who, listen, if you have to hear his tracks. If you haven't heard Damian Lillard rap, you need to hear his tracks. Especially on the 2K game. He has 2 tracks in there, straight fire. I think he wants to play for Jerry Sloan. I don't know. A small part of me thinks that he wants Jerry Sloan as a head coach. Kyle Lowry and Kyle Anthony Towns also joins the Stephen Curry team. Now, what I find interesting, right? What I find interesting here is the fact that it looks like the LeBron James-led team is just not holding up anymore. And this is true not only for his all-star team, but also for his regular team. Earn my dollars, don't forget. Don't forget to go to Multiverse Games, Miami Gardens, 7th Avenue. The first injury that came about for this All-Star game, which is probably the most dynamic injury that we heard about so far. The very first one. DeMarcus Cousins injures his Achilles in a game. On a hustle play. Trying to save a ball from going out of bounds. He lands on it awkwardly, and then you see automatically he cannot put pressure on it. DeMarcus Cousins is out. Now, what that does for the All-Star game, before we could talk about what it even does for his team, what that does for the All-Star game is that leaves a spot because we had some significant snubs this year, right? Some very significant snubs. Guys like Lou Williams. Guys like Andre Drummond. Guys like Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Paul George. All got snubbed from this NBA All-Star game. So when you heard that a guy like DeMarcus Cousins went out injured, you automatically started to think and speculate and wonder, who are they going to replace him with? And my initial thought, because I may have touched on this very, very, very briefly last week. But initially, it only made sense. You lose a big man, you replace him with the next guy of comparable skill set. And that's why I kind of thought Paul George was going to get that initial nod. And you know what? He did. Paul George is the first filler on the All-Star team. But he's not going to be the last one that's going to need a filler. Because shortly after that, we heard John Wall suffer an injury and state that he is not going to be able to participate in this All-Star game. And if you've been watching the NBA, then you may have heard this or you may not have. But last night, to add insult to injury, this is going to be a third player now. But this one hits a little closer to home for LeBron than any of the other ones. Because this isn't just a player on his all-star team. This is a player on his regular team. And that, folks, is Kevin Love. Kevin Love breaks his hand last night. So Kevin Love is out. And now with possibly 5 guys that we think is very deserving of a spot. 2 of them have been filled already. Because Andre Drummond is already being called up as a filler, and so has Paul George. Over now, both of these are over Chris Paul. You would assume that Chris Paul probably gets this nod. And then I take it. Chris Paul for John Wall, Kevin Love for Andre Drummond, Cousins for Paul George. You're not disrespecting anybody. And unless we get 2 more injuries, obviously we don't see Devin Booker or Lou Williams at that coming in. Devin Booker probably get the nod before Lou Williams, as Lou Williams had a horrific game last night as he struggled. Folks, we're going to take our last commercial break. And when we come back, we'll talk some more basketball. We'll do my football picks. And we'll get you guys going. This is myTsports Podcast on mytradio.net, also on mytsports.net. The Mix All I Rap, tune in radio, wherever you like to listen to. And right now, even streaming live on Facebook. We should have went Instagram. Next time we do this, we go on IG. Just to let you guys know. If you're listening or watching now, next week, we do this on Instagram. We're going to give our Instagram people some love.
Come on down to XF Martial Arts, where you'll be able to take part in learning all the disciplines you'll need to be an extreme freestyle martial arts machine. Whether it's taekwondo, karate, yoga, summer, spring, or fall, XF Martial Arts has it all. For more information, class times, and dates, don't wait. Go to xfmartialarts.com and reserve your spot today. That's XF Martial Arts, located at 2875 South Congress Avenue, Suite D, Delray Beach, Florida, 33445. Or call 561-276-1774 and ask to speak with Sensei Cohen to reserve your free trial week. Just tell him myTsports sent you. XF Martial Arts, where fun and discipline are one.
And we are back to the myTsports Podcast. I am still your host, Alan Thormeyer Taylor. If you're still listening, that means you're still listening on the many, many, many platforms I have provided for you guys. TuneIn Radio, myTsports, MyT Radio, MixLR, 24/7, Miami.TV, everywhere. So back into these sports, right? Back into these sports. Because there's been a lot that's happened so far this week in the NBA, right? Like James Harden puts up a double overnight. Right, this is in this last week. Like I said, you know how this week goes. Put up a double overnight as the Houston Rockets had a 104-97 victory over Dallas. James Harden puts up 25 points and 13 assists. Not to mention, on that same night, we had Damian Lillard drop 31 points as Portland Trailblazers maneuvered themselves over Minnesota 123-114. Not only that, we also saw this week have Russell Westbrook score a season-high 46 points as his Thunder went on to beat the Washington Wizards 121-112. Giannis Antetokounmpo put up 41 points and 13 rebounds as they steamrolled over the Brooklyn Nets 116-91. Russell Westbrook again made some news this past week, dropping 31 points with 13 assists as they win over Detroit 121. So you've seen a repeat of that number, right? 121-108 over Detroit. And James Harden, folks, put up another double-double. In the same night that Russell Westbrook almost put up a triple-double right? James Harden put up a double-double in a 113-102 victory over the Phoenix Suns. And listen, the Phoenix Suns right now, they're just struggling. They can't seem to find a victory over anybody. But Russell Westbrook went into Philadelphia, and they took on Philly, and Russell Westbrook won not only with 37 points, 9 assists, and 14 rebounds, but also with the stare down of all stare downs at the end of the game to Joel Embiid, who had dunked on him earlier, flashed a little bit. Didn't really quite dunk on him, but put him in the dunking picture. Flashed, stunned on him earlier, but Russell Westbrook gets the laugh last. Gets the last laugh. As his team gets the victory 122 to 112 over Philadelphia. Also, folks, we saw James Harden drop 60 points in his quest of a triple-double to add on to 11 rebounds and 10 assists. That is the first time ever somebody has scored that many points while putting up a triple-double. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Because that starts to shape up the NBA, right? That starts to shape up the NBA. Because you heard me talk about some of these guys that are injured or some of these guys that are going out. What you don't realize is that it isn't just of who went out of the All-Star game, right? Or who was replacing the All-Star game. It's who is actually out for these teams. As we have Boston still sitting in the number one spot, 36-15, right? Well, they're trailed by Toronto by only one game. And that one is 34, and that record is 34-15. Toronto, 34-15, sitting in number 2. You have Cleveland, sitting in third with a record of 29-20, with a half a game lead over the Miami Heat, who have a record of 29-21. And folks, the Miami Heat and the Cleveland Cavaliers have a date with destiny coming up pretty soon. This game is gonna pretty much determine who the number 3 seed is. Or at least help shape it up. Cleveland can't keep taking these blows because Cleveland is one of the first teams that we want to talk about as far as these injuries are concerned. They lose Kevin Love. Kevin Love, a guy that over the last couple of weeks has taken tons of scrutiny for the Cleveland Cavaliers' struggles. A guy that has taken scrutiny for... right there, huh? I see that. Who has taken scrutiny for why the team isn't winning, why the team isn't playing. You understand? Like, the guy left sick a couple weeks ago, and everybody said that he was faking it. And now he's going to go out. And now you have to look, because listen, Kevin Love has been one of the few people that have stepped up in the absence of Kyrie Irving. I don't see Dwayne Wade stepping up. I don't see J.R. Smith stepping up. All we see out of Tristan Thompson is he's dating another Kardashian. He's dating a Kardashian. J.R. Smith was better with his shirt off. Dwayne Wade is having his girlfriend give him butt plugs and enemas and tossing his salad. Just saying. They have a lot more issues than them all pointing a finger at Kevin Love. Because now, they're going to have to step up. Drake Crowder, he's going to have to step up. Isaiah Thomas is going to have to step up. Yeah, we understand that you just came back from injury, fam. Guess what? Nap time is over. You on the court now. It's time to step up. You had some recovery time. It's time for you to start balling again. How is he going to be able to do that? With high usage. Listen, without no Kevin Love, it does allow for guys like LeBron James and a guy like Isaiah Thomas to be able to get that ball a little bit more. Get that ball a lot more than they needed to. Especially for a guy like Isaiah Thomas that is trying to show the world that he is worth that money. Because we see that teams, if they don't want to give you that money, they will send you shopping. The same exact way that the LA Clippers have traded. Yes, folks, if you don't know about this, let me get this one for you. Let's get you the breaking news down. The LA Clippers have traded the injured Blake Griffin to the Detroit Pistons for chump change, peanuts, and a paperclip, and a red rubber band. You know what I'm talking about. So Cleveland only has a half a game lead over Miami. A Miami team that has found a way to consistently win games. We'll talk about Miami and their game-winning ways later. We don't have a lot of show left, but maybe 13 minutes. 18. Cleveland is going to be tested. This may be one of the very few years that Cleveland is going to really be tested. Or I feel like Cleveland gets tested before leaving the East. There have been a lot of years where you knew the East was fluffy, that you were hoping that guys were going to be able to take their steps forward like Paul George in Indiana, or you was hoping that teams were going to be able to find consistency like the Detroit Pistons in the Chauncey Billups era, or you were hoping that teams were going to be able to find their way like Brooklyn in the Joe Johnson era. But we've seen that either teams have gotten old, i.e. Boston and Detroit, or they just weren't mature enough or had enough pieces like the Indianas of the world, like the New York Knicks of the world, like the Brooklyns of the world. But now you wonder, can a team like Toronto challenge them now? Can a team like Boston challenge them now? How much is home court advantage worth for the Cleveland Cavaliers? Can the Cleveland Cavaliers fall to the 5th spot? As remember, they are only 2 games ahead of Milwaukee, who sits in the number 6 spot. That's how serious it is for the Miami Heat, for the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. Now, are you telling me that if they fell to the 5 spot, that Cleveland is going to go on the road and beat Miami? That Cleveland will go on the road and beat Boston? That Cleveland will go on the road and beat Toronto? Like, that's what we're worrying about here. That's what we're concerned about here. As we just lost the live feed on Facebook. You know what? This is all bonus time anyway. So the only way to hear the picks is going to be on the MixLR app. Or live through the station, I should say. So as we said, Miami's in 4th with a record of 29-21. Followed by Washington with a record of 28-22. Milwaukee sits behind them, number 6 spot. Indiana's behind them in the 7th spot. Followed by Philly with a record barely over 500 of 24-23. And once again, folks, something that we have consistently spoken about this whole entire season is how all of these teams that are in the playoffs, all of them, have a record of above 500, which means that this year, more than any other year, if things continue, we are not going to hear that rhetoric, it should all just be 16, and then everything just be shuffled, and one should play the 16, and then blah, 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 and it should be a tournament style, and all of this mumbo jumbo, and all of that madness, and all of that mess. No, we get none of that. This year, more than anything else, all of the teams are going to have a record better than 500. It means that all of them belong in the playoffs in their spot. In the West, and the Knicks are in 10th spot, obviously, with a record under 500. In the 10th spot, we have... Yeah, folks, you're back to your regularly scheduled program on the MixLR app too as well by this point. MixLR has also went back to normal. So, you catch all of this on the re-air. No picks for you live. It should have just worked out that way, right? Now, one hand needs to watch the other and both need to watch the face. Let's see if we can get this reconnected. Let's see if we get lucky. So So Golden State still holds on the number 1 spot with a record of 40-11. Houston is behind them with a record of 36-13, followed by San Antonio, who still doesn't have Kawhi Leonard, a record of 34-19. Now, folks, I know I skipped over a couple people that may have been injured, like John Wall being injured in Washington. As Washington is struggling to hold on that number 5 spot. As Washington is struggling to keep pace with the Miami Heat at this point in time. These are the things that we're talking about here. These are the things that are concerned. More so than these guys not making it to their All-Star game or their All-Star teams, but the fact that they're not going to be able to play for their regular teams. And for the majority of these guys, that are in the All-Star game, you have to say at least 99% of them, their teams are in the playoffs. 100% of them, their teams are in the playoff hunt. So if you have a guy that made it to the All-Star team that is injured, it isn't just like, hey, some regular old player for your team is injured. Your All-Star is injured. That's what we're getting at here. That's what I'm trying to point out to you with what's going on in Cleveland. Their All-Star is injured in Kevin Love. In Washington, their All-Star is injured in John Wall. Remember, there's all kinds of beefs and rifts going on in Washington. If you remember that, they had a players-only meeting, and what came from that players-only meeting was the fact that those players don't quite see eye to eye, and they're not getting along still. And things went from bad to worse after the players' meeting. You have John Wall over here beefing with guys like J.J. Barea, as he's going on camera calling him a midget. And what does J.J. Barea respond with? Well, you know what? Your team doesn't even like you. And now he's injured. And now we have to see what Bradley Beal is going to do for this team solely. As we continue in the West, Golden State holds that 1 spot. We told you Houston holds the number 2 spot. San Antonio Spurs holds the number 3 spot. And they continue to hold it down even though there is no Kawhi Leonard. Minnesota continues to hold on the number 4 spot with a record of 32-22. Oklahoma City continues to win games as they've won as many as 9 straight games, folks. The Oklahoma City Thunder have finally found their path, and they are looking like the team that we thought they were.
They are who we thought they were. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown. They are who we thought they were. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook.
I mean, we didn't really let Oklahoma City off the hook. I mean, they are who we thought they were, and we held them to that standard. Remember, there was a point in time where Oklahoma City Thunder was the very last team in their division. That is no longer the case. Now, they are the best team in their division, to my knowledge. I didn't do that research before I said that. So I could have just said that and it not even be correct. But that's how it looks, as they are now the 5th team in the West. They are just about 2.5 games ahead of Portland, and they are also above New Orleans, who holds at the number 7 spot. Now, New Orleans is another tricky character because a team that just started vibing. It is now going to look like they're going to make the playoffs, and you want to see what those Twin Towers are going to look like with Rajon Rondo in the playoffs against, who knows, Houston Rockets, San Antonio, maybe even Golden State. Now we don't get to see those guys in full strength anymore. What we get is DeMarcus Cousins out. And now it's just going to be the Brow. And now we have to see if what the Brow has to give for the last portion of this season, if it's going to be enough to help his team continue their playoff run. Because as it currently stands right now, I believe New Orleans isn't going to make it. I believe that the DeMarcus Cousins injury is going to be a lot worse than what either people are willing to admit or what they may be willing to admit. And if that's the case, then just how the LA Clippers went ahead and they said, you know what? We'll go ahead and trade we'll go ahead and trade Blake Griffin. I say to you, why not go ahead and trade DeMarcus Cousins right now? See who's willing to take him. Why not go and trade Anthony Davis? See who's willing to take him. These guys are in talks now. Because nothing is safe. Nothing is off the table anymore. Everybody can be traded. But it makes you wonder, right? Because Blake Griffin gets to Detroit. And part of me looks at it as if this is really just the LA, for Blake Griffin, that is. In a weird sense, this is the LA Clippers revamped. Now, am I calling Jackson Chris Paul? No, but he's feisty, he's fiery, he can ball. Am I calling Andre Drummond DeAndre Jordan? Yeah. I'm definitely doing that. I am definitely doing that. That is actually the first portion of it that made me even think that these two are even similar. That this trade was something that almost looked like something that we've seen before. Because Blake Griffin basically gets to go back and play with a rim protector. Now, Blake Griffin has expanded his game, but Blake Griffin doesn't necessarily need all of that room in the middle anymore, so he's allowed to let Andre Drummond focus in there. Also, Blake Griffin already knows how to play with a guy that needs the paint. And with him playing with DeAndre Jordan. So for him, this is a very comfortable position for Blake Griffin. You're used to playing with the guy that's the star on Detroit. You're used to playing with his player type. You're used to playing with his architect already. So for you, or for Blake Griffin, this may be a seamless transition. And we hope so. We hope so. We hope that's a much easier transition than the one that I'm about to make now, because you know what? I am ready to talk about my Knicks. And if I'm ready to talk about my Knicks, that means you guys know exactly what's coming. You know where we're going with this. You know where we stand. So, can I get a little drum roll for this so I can set this up properly? A little one? A little drum roll? What do you mean you didn't load the drum roll? But we always have the drum roll. That's not good. It makes you look bad, B. But can we still get it anyway, though? Okay, thank you. So, without any further, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Matter of fact, 305. I get it. I swear that I get it. We just did it. We did it. We did it. We so far from finish. I brought you right back just so we can relive it.
I know you guys are thinking, like, when is he going to talk Super Bowl? When is he going to make his picks? We're almost out of time. No, we're not there yet. I want to talk about this last week in Knicks and Heat basketball. Because these guys were balling. These guys were playing. These guys did their thing. Oh, before we get there, you hear about Roger Federer winning his 20th Grand Slam or his 20th major? Like, you know, that's another topic for another day. As we want to talk about weirder Americans in tennis that aren't women. And it makes me wonder if the fact that the Williams sisters' biggest hype was the fact that, you know what? You're all they had to root for from America. So you forced them to accept you. Right? So this past week, right? Let's get this one here. I really do love this one. So let's get this one shot off. Yeah. One time for your mind, one time. No, I'm joking. But starting off this week, right? We had the New York Knicks taking on the Denver Nuggets, right? And as I told you, New York Knicks had three straight road games. And if you know me, you know that I don't have any kind of faith or confidence in the Knicks whatsoever anytime they have a road game. So, for the very first game was against Denver. They lost against Denver 118-130 in the Mile High. Yeah, than a kite city. Next up, the New York Knicks went into Phoenix, and they took on the Phoenix Suns. And I told you this earlier. The Phoenix Suns happen to be a really bad team, and they can't catch a break, and they happen to lose to everybody. And the New York Knicks were no different. The Phoenix Suns fell to the New York Knicks, who can't find a win at home. Who can't find a win on the road. They gave them one with a 107-85 victory. Enes Kanter put up 20 points, folks, in that game. 15 of those came in the first quarter as he helped set the tone early, and the tone never went away, folks. He was more tuned in than me on Saturday morning cartoons when I was 5. It's basically 3 years ago. Then we will catch him last night, take on the Brooklyn Nets. And I'm going to tell you, folks, the Brooklyn Nets are the only consistent team that the Knicks can beat. Every time the Knicks go up against Brooklyn, they win. Every time I see them go up against Brooklyn, I know it's bad. Which is so weird because Brooklyn goes up against Miami and Brooklyn spanks Miami. The Knicks go up against Miami and they lose to Miami. But yet, they beat Brooklyn, which is good. 95-111. Enes Kanter that game had 28 points and 20 rebounds. As we switch over to some Heat culture, folks. Miami Heat had 2 home games. They had 3 games this past week. 2 home games, 1 run game on the road. None of these games were particularly hard. Kind of thought they were going to come away with 3 straight victories. And the Miami Heat disappointed us. And they disappointed us early. As the first game against Sacramento, they lost that game in Miami 89-88. As when I tell you that it was a very disappointing game, the Miami Heat were up double-digit points with less than 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and they lost as the Sacramento Kings went on a 17-4 run with 5 minutes and 46 seconds left in the fourth quarter, folks. The Miami Heat put up 4 points the second half of the fourth quarter. That's how they lost the game by 1 point to a Sacramento team that is barely sniffing victories. Next up, the Miami Heat will go into Charlotte, or will take on Charlotte in Miami. And you know what? It seems like they learned their lesson and they realized, you know what? Instead of being on the receiving end of one of these runs, let's be on the giving end of one of these runs. As the Miami Heat win 95-91 with an 8-1 run with just about 2.5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. And to end their week, they'll take on the Dallas Mavericks. And they would go to Dallas and come away with a victory, 95-88, as Hassan Whiteside put up 25 points and 14 rebounds. Folks, that's all the basketball we're going to talk today. Because you know what? You know what you can't rebound from? You know what you can't rebound from? You can't rebound from hearing that Alex Smith, after putting up top 3 quarterback numbers the whole entire year, just got traded to the Washington Redskins. And now that means Kirk Cousins isn't going to get that money. Kirk Cousins is getting disrespected the same way I'm telling you that Isaiah Thomas is going to get disrespected when it comes time to pay that man his money. Don't worry, we're almost out of here. So who do I think is going to win the Super Bowl, right? This is the odd part, right? I already told you guys who I thought was going to win the Super Bowl when the season started. I told you who was going to win the Super Bowl when I found out that they got a guy by the name of Brandon Cooks. My position hasn't changed. The ultimate heels, the professional cheaters, the New England Patriots are going to come away with another victory. And then we're going to have to try to talk about of how great Tom Brady is. I don't see a way that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win this game. If they do, then I'll be just as shocked as everybody else. If you listen to the podcast, and also we want to say congratulations to Lashana for winning the Women's Fantasy Football League. You're going to get paid on the Super Bowl night. Also, don't forget, folks, if you can, go to Cruises Legacy. Go to ucaring.com/Cruises Legacy to donate to a wonderful cause that is trying to help all cancer patients that suffer from peripheral neuropathy by donating to them items of warmth, whether it be hats, scullies, hat/scullies, those beanies, some gloves, or even blankets. What are we trying to do here? Basically, we're trying to make these people a little bit more comfortable. These victims suffer from peripheral neuropathy, which is a condition that leaves them in a state of hypertension, which means that basically it doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees outside or not. They always feel cold. They cannot stay warm. Their body is always feeling like it's in a freezing temperature. And right now in these winter months, it is no worse time to have your body to not be able to feel like you can get warm than right now. So what we're trying to do is trying to help by donating so we can get these guys warm, get these guys some clothing, get these guys some items. Once again, that is Ycasring, youcaring.com/Cruises Legacy. CRUZSLEGACY. Back to these picks, folks. I don't believe that Philadelphia is going to come away with a victory. You can't convince me of it. They lost their all-star quarterback. Their defense can only do so much. And unless I see 56-3 with only two seconds left on the clock, then I still won't believe that Philadelphia has won that game. The New England Patriots will come away with a victory. Tom Brady will come away with his sixth ring. And the whole world will continue to go to poop. That is the Mighty Sports Podcast. I am your host, the one and only talented Omar Taylor. I thank you for listening. We know how I say, folks. Stay tuned, stay blessed, and please, whatever you do, please don't stress.
Sorry, boys. All the stitches in the world can't sew me
On my
together.
mama, we living.
Lay down. Always knew I'd make a stop there. But a lot later than a whole gang of people thought. Last call for drinks. Bars closing down. Sun's out. Where we going for breakfast? Don't want to go far. Rough night. Tired, baby. Tired.
My team!